This is part two of the previous video, and I'm going to keep running so I don't lose the train of consciousness. But there's a context being the first video to this one where I appear in the same outfit. But what I was saying is that Nicholas Taleb was talking about how he has books where he talks about like incongruencies of like risk and effort, where a lot of times people have found different ways, such as like no less than like bankers and such, to maximize the profit while reducing their own exposure to risk. That's the name of the game, because you can't, a lot of things like of value, you can't do them without risk. That's just an inherent property of reality in this universe, that you can't really amount to like real value without taking risk, like as he would say, skin in the game. But many people have found ways to land upon value while limiting their exposure to risk, which the exposure to risk cannot be it cannot be completely eliminated, but it can be evaded and passed on to others to bear, similar to effort in different times, like what I'm talking about, like with maybe like slavery or different forms of feudalism, like in the Southeast Asia before that conflict that I referenced. So that those would be like passing off effort, but like now it's both effort and risk, probably more so risk, because the way that the nature of the current matrix has created a lot of value, but equally as much value as it's created that much risk, and that risk must still be accounted for. So us, the humble people, the doing the grunt work, trying to answer for our bills and so forth, we're really taking these life and death chances when we walk out our door, and the different people we engage with, business interests and so forth, they're sitting back like fat cats and they're getting the profit, but they're also doing so over this sophisticated matrix apparatus. And so what I want, the greater message I'm coming with in this video is that when we see stuff like when we land online and we see like brutal like scenes of combat going on overseas, and we really don't know what the hell is, why they're doing that, like what is going, that's so, it's so sophisticated that it could almost look, it could make rocket science look like child's play, how sophisticated the politics of that stuff is. But if I were to bring it back down to its most fundamental, to the root, to the least common denominator, it would just be simple imperialism and this matrix apparatus, and the incongruencies within it, and that these are being passed off, but they can't be eliminated. So then they are transpiring and sprouting up at these different random places in these awesome, grim, and severe circumstances that people can't quite fully understand. But the deeper reality is that we are having incongruence. We are not having equity as human beings with one another, and so these conflicts and this strife in general society abroad as a backdrop, with so much contention and sneering at one another, disrespecting, affronting one another. But then that goes broader, and that goes, that would be the more that's like the foundation or the soil. But then it can amount to these other more severe and drastic expressions of inequity, being no less than battle, trench warfare in the year 2024, 2025. Who would have thought we would be having trench warfare in such a time? Probably only someone who could appreciate imperialism back then, when it happened, like in World War One, and recognizing that nothing about that is changing until we change as human beings, and it's only going to get more sophisticated, like we have the Matrix now. But that doesn't take away these brutal realities that are stemming from our inequity and our misappropriation of resources. Which a lot of times I wear that African that emblem of African solidarity, and what that represents is the shared heritage of human beings, which has been recognized to emanate from Africa in certain understandings. Then the red is like the blood that all of us human beings, we have the same red blood that connects us, that is us. And then the green is the bounty, both the bounty of the earth itself, and then the bounty of us when we come together. And those two things are not different, because a lot of people would have a problem with anyone being entitled, but I would say, on an extent, we as human beings are entitled to this earth. We're not entitled more than one another, but we are entitled to this earth because we are this earth. And so that's what I think a lot of our dilemma is this misappropriation of resources, and then the matrix serving to bolster and perfect this misappropriation of resources along lines of sometimes I think we're only allowed to have a job so that we can identify with and believe in and support the greater inequities and think that this is really right because I had to work for that, so this must really be mine, and I must really have an advantage over another person, and I must be more entitled because I actually did have to work for that, even though they might have worked as hard or harder for less. But the fact of engaging with it, we believe in what we engage with. If you want someone to believe in something, have them work for it, and then they'll believe anything if they had to work a little bit. So that's my understanding of like what's going on with the matrix and how we're seeing different things. But then the last thing I wanted to say is that going back to that is that if you appreciate the matrix as a military apparatus, it is in fact a weapon from that standpoint. And it did nothing about that change since the conflict in Southeast Asia to the current point. It is a danger to human beings. However effective it is, however fun it is, however much. And I said in another forum that and I'm gonna quote myself on this is that the Matrix was originally was conceived with people who were preoccupied with weaponry and military exploits, and so it is part of that history, and it has that nature to it, and then it still has that nature to it, and so as such it is potentially and still yet dangerous to all people, even people who identify with it and people who profit from it, because as I said in another space is that imperialism itself is not a respecter of persons. I've seen like you can say I believe in, say I'm recruited for the military, like in where I live at, and I have a lot of I have sentiments of nationalism, and then I run off and I join the military, and then the military has like a mission where they need to draw enemy fire in order to figure out where the enemies are at. So then they send me and all my nationalism and all of these different guns that they gave me in my idea of my ideas of being a hero down a corridor where I'm likely to draw fire that is likely to be my undoing. With whatever pretensions or skill I have, I'm gonna get obliterated as I go through there. But yeah, I'm gonna draw enemy fire that the other back elements can respond to, and that's understood by the generals, and that's understood by me on a certain level. Whether I identify with that or not, I've just been sent to my undoing, my violent and the type of experience that make a person wish they'd never been born, and then effectively have the same outcome as if they had never been born, while identifying with it. And so that's a brutal, but that's similar to identifying with the Matrix, is that it's still inherently a weapon, and so that's why it's problematic for us. However we identify with it, or whatever advantages we think we can get from it, I think those advantages are nullified. The Matrix itself is nullified by itself, and whatever benefit we get from it, I think is actually nullified by the fact that it's just a weapon. So you have like different people saying like, you need to have a social media presence, or you need to do your creativity and your art on these different platforms, but these platforms are yet a part of a weapon that is to exert influence over human beings while extorting more resource than it's giving back. Kind of like a casino, where you can have fun in a casino, you can have some big winnings in a casino, but you stay there long enough and the casino is going to get over on you. And it's similar with engaging with the Matrix, I think. And so I just wanted to point that out, is that sometimes we really believe in the modern reality way more than it might be prudent to. Not that we can get away from it, but that just simply recognizing that could make us even more effective with it. And I think that some of the brutal realities that we're seeing, like the conflicts sprouting not just overseas, but both at home and overseas, are part of the incongruence of resources being distributed, but also that the Matrix is a weapon, and these are externalities, or indirect yet sophisticated and very potent outcomes that are a function of how the matrix functions. And I think but that's on like that would be like in terms of like um, violence and conflict, which we're seeing violence proliferate. I grew up like in the 90s, and that was already a violent time, but I couldn't imagine back then that things would be some of the things that I see, like just like hopping on online. I couldn't imagine that that you would see that like in the 90s. Like usually if you saw something that was like violent, it was like in a movie or something, and there had been a plot, or there had been like some artful something artful leading up to how that got to be like that. But if you just go online now, they're just almost showing dead bodies. They're almost like, oh, watch this person get shot in Walmart. Oh, watch this person get hit by a car. Watch this person that's just dead. We don't know how they're dead. It's just like they're almost just showing you bodies at a certain point. And there's something about like there's something about a dead body that's just it's primal, and it's captivating, and there's a saying that that dead bodies draw more dead bodies. But I think going back as human beings, like we're simply compelled by the sight of a dead body. And in a reality where attention has become currency, it's got to that point where like, let's just show them some dead bodies and get attention now, and therefore get currency. But I think that but we really that's like with the violence. But then I think that there's also social violence and deprivation, such as difficulty within relationships, and then just different. It's very difficult for us to relate to each other as human beings outside of the parameters and values of the matrix. So things like love making, family creation. It's I think it's somewhat lopsided, and it's somewhat different in this paradigm of the matrix, and I think that might not always be for the best. The matrix, it skews resources, so it makes more and more of have-nots and more of haves. So you have some people that are having probably more success in relationships or finance or love making, whatnot, and then they know what to do with. And then there's other people that are being deprived, who are no yet less valuable, or who are as valuable as people who are winning. But there's a divide that's caused by the incongruency in the functioning of the matrix, and it's more and more dire, and that's as it expressed in the violence that we see, the deprivation, the broken families, the way that feeds back. And then also on the other end, you have the affluence and the wealth, both in financial terms, terms of capital, then human social capital, like with like relationships, finance, and so you have just a recipe for a lot of pain and conflict when you have that type of disparity. And we know that the matrix has been fashioning billionaires as we haven't seen before since about like the time of the dot-com bust and so forth. That's on the broadest scale. But then that equally exists on the a little bit lower realms, where you have people that are really doing well and benefiting, and then other people who are paying for that in one way or another. And I think that it's likely to continue until we find ways to be equitable with one another. I think that like artistry, like what I'm bringing forward with this channel, is like maybe a step in that direction. And so I put in a comment on another forum that got deleted, is that I think if you were to in these different military theaters and so forth, and then just in all different walks of life, people are interested in influence nowadays. That's what it amounts to, is the people want to have influence and therefore advantage over other people. But I think that one of the greatest influences is like songwriting and like expressing like original thoughts and original ideas. So I think that if we were to give each service member their own instrument of choice, and some training on it, I think we could be more influential, and we'd have more success than we would with any kind of weapon or any other kind of training. If we can just be trained to be original, creative, humane, equitable, that's our best shot, and that's all I'm trying to say. Peace.